A lot of people dream of the perfect vacation. Many have a specific site they'd like to see, like the Eiffel Tower or the Grand Canyon. Others seek adventure, like a windjammer sailing cruise or an African safari. As you picture your own dream destination in your mind, I have a question. Who else is with you, or are you all alone? I'm Lou Gum. This is Arizona Edition Live, show number 18. Today we'll explore the idea of exploring the world by yourself. My guest is Randell Carlton Green, author of Smart and Solo, the blueprint for efficient and enjoyable solo travel. Green says travel is in our DNA. From wandering nomads to modern-day jet-setters, people like to experience new places, new things, and new people. Green has visited dozens of world locations alone and has some tips and tricks to help you plan your own solo vacation. Randell Carlton Green, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
All right, so let's get a little bit about your background, and I want some background information because I'm curious about what it is in your background that maybe led you to become a solo traveler, because I don't want to – that's kind of unique.
It is. I'm a native Arizonan, but at the same time, I'm a dual citizen. My mom's from England, and I think so early on I was already someone who was interested in multiple cultures, and I've always just been interested in people and just the value of meeting people that weren't like me, from different faces.
And you have a bit of a Yuma connection as well.
I have a Yuma connection, so I went to Buckeye High School, and then I came down to Yuma to start college, and came down here for football, so I'm a Matador. I'm an Arizona Western Matador as well.
All right, so you decide that you can travel alone, or was it a decision? Was it just a matter of, I really want to go somewhere, and I'd been waiting for someone to go with me, and then decided I'll just do it?
Yeah, I think initially it was never a goal like I want to go out and travel by myself, be this solo traveler. No, it was initially I wanted to travel to go to different baseball parks. One of my goals was to see all 30 of the baseball parks. And unfortunately with baseball, a lot of the cities are in older cities and with populations are decreasing. So when I ask someone, hey, you want to go to Detroit this week, or do you want to go to Pittsburgh or Baltimore? There was never anybody answering. So that kind of started off with well, all right, I'm not going to wait for anyone. I'm going to go my own. And that was when I first kind of ventured into solo travel. And then progressing down the way, it became international as well.
So what do you consider your first big solo trip?
First big solo trip would have been Spain. I wanted to see Real Madrid, wanted to see Barcelona for football, and so went across there, went by myself, and I was definitely nervous, definitely scared at the time.
Why? What scared you? What made you nervous? And how old were you at the time?
This would have been about 5 years ago, and I think I was nervous. For one, just anytime you go someplace that you're not aware of, I was nervous because of that. I was nervous just on would I be able to handle it, would I be able to get around. And I think I was a little bit scared and a little bit probably shy on the aspect of there's a spotlight effect. Anytime you do anything by yourself, people think everybody in the world's looking at me. That here I am in a Barcelona, the city of millions of people, but everybody here knows that I'm by myself. And that was this worry that I had. And I would always kind of make up small fibs like, oh, yeah, my friend's over there. They're on a different flight or wherever it may be. So I was definitely scared, shy, nervous, all the above.
Did you speak Spanish?
Necesito más practicar en español. I need more practice, but not good enough. But the funny thing is everybody there wanted to speak English. So in my Uber drivers and everybody, I would butcher my Spanish, and they would say, oh, no, it's all good. I want to go to Miami. I want to go to Miami. I want to practice my English. I'm like, all right, cool.
So what did your friends and family say about this first solo trip? Because obviously you told them you were going. Did they think it was crazy, or did they think it was great?
Yeah, but it was Mom supports everything, but friends, I didn't tell anybody that I was going by myself. A lot of it, like, wait, you're in Spain, you're in Madrid? So a lot of people didn't know at first, and it was down the road. They're like, wait, who'd you go with? And then it was started to be like, wow, they would say things like, I would never do that, I could never do that.
So tell us about some of the other trips. Where else did you go? Right
now, it's mostly been Europe. I've done over 25 countries solo with Europe. This last year, I've done, France. Trying to run them all back in my mind: Ireland, London, Netherlands, Germany, Italy, Sweden, Switzerland, Austria. Those are just some of the ones that come to me first.
And what's similar about your strategy every time you approach one of these trips?
I take what's easiest. What I mean by that is I book my front and my back end of my flight, and I fly to someplace convenient. Places like London, Paris are convenient to fly into because they're great hubs to go to different locations from there. And then in the middle, I kind of take what just happened. So when I was in Dublin, I wanted to go to Prague, but for some reason that flight doubled in price the week I went to purchase it. So I said, all right, I'm not going to Prague anymore, and I flew to Nice, France instead. So it usually just comes to I just pull up and as long as I have the front and the back taken care of, I just take what happens on the way.
Is that kind of flexibility really easier because you're alone?
Yes. But by being alone, it gives me a lot of flexibility, and I know that how many times we've been on people who go on trips, and even if it's just a trip to the mall or to a store, there's conflicting ideas of how long to spend somewhere or where else to go, or any museums you go to. Some people are interested in history, some people are interested in art, some people have no interest in it at all. So having that flexibility, and I'll go anywhere. There's not a country in the world I wouldn't go to.
So tell us about some places you found yourself in that doing something that you never had planned and perhaps never even dreamed of.
Yeah, I think the first one that comes to mind would just be being in Iceland, because Iceland it felt like another planet. You when you land, it's kind of desert-like almost when you land, because the airport's in the middle of nowhere, and then you take the 45-minute ride into Reykjavik, and then another 45 minutes, and you're surrounded by glaciers, and that's kind of wow. Am I really in Iceland right now? That's the first one that comes to mind.
It chafes against your Arizona upbringing a little bit to be surrounded by glaciers.
Yeah, but the funny things about that is that because of my Arizona upbringing, I'm fascinated by being in places that are cold and snow. I tend to travel in the winter because in Europe, in the winter is much more affordable. Summertime, everybody seems to travel to Europe, so I like to go in the winter, and I'm fascinated by the snow. And I remember the first time I was in Stockholm, and I just saw a snowbank, and I had to take my glove off, put my hand in it, because I hadn't really felt what snow felt like. So I put it in there, and it was obviously a horrible decision, because for the next 40 minutes, my hand was frozen. But
when you first started to travel, what resources were available to you to help you get around, and has that changed over time?
Yeah, I think a lot of the resources have changed over time. Initially, there were just the typical books, the Lonely Planets books of those nature, and I would go online. But as I've seen this and as I've researched more, I've found different websites that have more options for fun things to do, tours, trips, things like that, and then also just some of the apps that you can use that show you where you are on the map, so that while you're walking, you can say, well, this monument is 20 feet on your right, and then I can decide, do I want to continue walking that much? Which in places like Paris or some of the places that have older monuments, sometimes you're not interested in things. So if you know in advance, you don't have to walk all the way over there.
I've traveled enough to know that there's sort of a camaraderie around tourists. You run into people from all over the world if you're staying at a hotel or a hostel or whatever. Did you run into other solo travelers?
It's less solo travelers, but I will say the camaraderie is fantastic. There's nothing better that when people first look over and they say, "Wait, you're by yourself?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then that's when actually kind of sparked the idea to write the book, was because it went from being something I was nervous about to then being proud of it. They're like, "You're by yourself?" I could never do that, they would always say. And so I'm like, "Yeah." And
followed by an invitation to dinner, or
yeah. And I write in the book that the one line to bridge any boundary, any gap, any political problems, or any difference of culture is, I got the next round. And I learned over time, I've had some amazing conversations in hostels and bars and airport restaurants, just with people, just when you reach out and just, I got the next round, or wherever it may be. And I've met some amazing travelers, not many solo, but just amazing travelers in general.
When you run into a solo traveler, you both want to be alone. So is that does that work? Or?
Well, there's a little bit of kinship there. Bit of kinship. It's almost like you're sizing each other up first, because you're proud that you're traveling solo, so that when you see another one, it's kind of like you're on my territory right here. So a little bit of rivalry, but at the same time, then you almost want to exchange information. You want to like soak up and download every bit of information that they have, and then give the same. So it's a little bit fun like that. But I think most of the solo travelers I meet have been after the fact, through social media posts and everything like that. I mean, there's different groups on Facebook and whatnot that have that. So kind of little advice that you can give after the fact.
So let's talk about the book. It's sort of part travel guide, part treatise on just the joys of travel. You mentioned a little bit about why you decided to write it, that you had a little bit of an impetus in meeting others. But really, what was the motivation? When did you decide you had enough tips, tricks, or knowledge about this to share it with other people?
I think it dawned on me when I would come back from these trips, and you talk to me about most things in my life, and I have one tone, but then when I would talk about travel, I would talk faster, my voice would be higher pitched because I was more excited, and I felt myself just going on and on and on about all the different places you should see, all the places you should go, all these tips, this is the flight you should take, blah, blah, blah. And I felt that I have this wealth of knowledge, and I'm helping people, and I need to just put this on paper because I think it will benefit people.
What kept coming up for you on these trips that you thought, really, I need to share this information? How does this work?
I think one of the first things you talked about just having the flexibility, that's a big thing. If you're flexible, it's going to help you out in different places you can go, and to kind of just roll with the tide, whatever it happens, and being open. And by being flexible, it makes you more calm for when you are back from your trip. It can help you in your day-to-day life.
So here's a question. Did you come home and write the book, or did you travel and write the book? Most
of the time, I leave the laptop at home because it's just one less thing I got to worry about through security. I'm the most impatient person. I have them all out. I have the belt off, shoes off, all ready to go, and having the laptop is just one too many. But I do take notes constantly on my phone. I'll write things on my phone, but the actual writing, that I did when I come back.
The book also includes a lot of journaling options, and I'm assuming that's because you yourself use that as a tool.
Yeah, I write lists on lists on lists, whether it be on my phone or on my laptop. Always taking lists. And my goal was that I wanted this book to be something that, after you read, that you keep with you at all times, and it's your travel companion, your travel Bible. I wanted it to be something that is just near and dear to people's heart, and they take it with them and have it be abused and taken all around the world with them.
But it's more than just tips, too. There's just kind of a philosophy to it.
There definitely is a philosophy. I think anyone who travels, just in talking to you before, just experiencing other cultures, it opens your mind up. And once you learn about the world and about, you start learning that there's so much more that you don't know. And that idea and just the philosophy of meeting new people and appreciating other cultures is something that is invaluable. Oh,
we're going to break down a little bit about how you put the book together and some of the philosophy behind that. Coming up in just a moment, we're going to take a short break. This is Arizona Edition Live. Our guest is Randell Carlton Green. He's the author of Smart and Solo, The Blueprint for Efficient and Enjoyable Solo Travel. This is Arizona Edition Live. I'm Lou Gum. Our guest today is author Randell Carlton Green. His book is Smart and Solo, The Blueprint for Efficient and Enjoyable Solo Travel. I asked a little bit before, Randell, about some of the circumstances you found yourself in that challenged you. I guess the next level of that is, what did you learn about yourself in these adventures? And I ask that because a lot of what the book is about is discovery.
Mm-hmm. That's probably the most important thing of my travels and of the book is the discovery. And I talk about in the book about what travel provides you. It provides you an education, adventure, but an opportunity. And the opportunity, you just learn that you can do things. And I think I was so lost in Venice, Italy. Venice is just one of the hardest places. A labyrinth. Every building's the same size. There's water everywhere. I was miserably lost. Couldn't ask anyone for directions. I had known zero Italian. And I was almost to the point of tears where I was trying to find my way back to the hotel. And I finally figured it out. And once I came back, I thought to myself, Randell, if you can get through another city without knowing the language, without knowing anybody and do anything, you can do anything. So when I came back from my trip, it was a sense of relief, satisfaction, and being proud of, like, wow, I can do anything. And I think that's that. If you can overcome a challenge in another country, what can you do?
And that's the next question. So what did those challenges teach you about living your sort of non-travel life?
It's totally controlled my non-travel life, and everything I've taken there as far as being patient, as far as so many times when you travel you're uptight and to learn to also to be patient, to meditate, to also think about my problems, and everything I've done I've brought that back to travel, knowing that I can do hard things, knowing I can do different challenging things, and I was talking to my mom the other day about that, and I think I seek out these things. I want difficult experiences in my travel because being in your comfort zone every day, most people, that's all we stay in our circle, in our bubble of our comfort zone. So I seek out opportunities. Like I want the next trip to be something that is challenging and tough, and where I have to think, like, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? And so it's not that I look for the opportunity to miss trains, but I will say missing trains and flights and things like, and being lost is something that I kind of appreciate.
Yeah, flexibility it can be a tough lesson, but if you have to roll with it, there's a part of the book that talks about how you have to choose how you react to things.
Yeah, Viktor Frankl mentions, that's the ultimate, being a human. We control our reactions, and you can be frustrated, or you can figure it out. When you're traveling, you can't call mom, you can't call dad, you can't call anybody. You have to figure it out on your own. And that's another one of the best things about being by yourself, is that you have to figure it out. So when you're solving problems, new solutions come to mind, and then you can relate those to other problems and other ideas in your life, and it's just extremely beneficial.
I asked earlier about sites that you never thought you'd see. The book includes sort of a bucket list for the solo traveler, and I'm curious because there's some wild stuff on that bucket list that I can find it in front of me. Yeah, here it is. Ride a scooter during rush hour in Hanoi, Vietnam. Now, how many of these have you done?
Well, I don't know how many because I didn't keep track of them. I haven't done much Asia travel yet, but most of the European ones I've done in some way, shape, or form. The one sip a glass of rosé at the top of Eiffel Tower, I've done that one. And then the one on top of that, wonder at the stark differences between Klimt's, Judith, and Kiss paintings in Vienna. Just two extremely different paintings in Vienna, Austria. So some of these are from mine personal experiences, and some of them are just ones that I've read about myself as well.
But you'll be clicking some of these off yourself on
I
this
certainly
list?
hope so. With lists, for me, there always should be too much for you to actually finish. We always have something to aim for, because you're never going to be able to see it all, but I definitely strive to do as much of it.
Talk about, there's a part of the book that talks about representing yourself, representing your country, representing a tourist, even, if you want to be that broad about it. Talk about traveling the world and the cultures that you experience.
Anyone who's a traveler has an additional responsibility that they are an ambassador, not just of their community, of where they're from. You're not just an ambassador of America. You're an ambassador as a traveler as a whole. And a traveler's responsibility for the world is leaving it in better hands than they found it. I wrote about a rule called the Emerald Rule, which is while you travel, leave the destination you travel to in better hands than you found it. So when you're there, don't treat it like it's just your spring break where you just litter and not care about the local culture. Buy local. Reduce your waste and take steps that you can. There's different volunteer opportunities you can, and just be a good person. I mean, I know that sounds basic to say, but when you're traveling, let the person in front of you help someone else with their luggage off the conveyor rack, and just to kind of step back and realize that you're an ambassador of not just where you're from, but just for a world traveler, and you have a higher responsibility. With great power, great responsibility, you have that responsibility as a travel ambassador.
Because there are actually places that you would like to go to that you cannot go to now because they've been damaged by tourists.
Unfortunately, and it's kind of this double-edged sword that happens. The most popular areas are the ones that are most affected by over-tourism, and it's frustrating on that. And some places will only allow you for a certain amount of time. Venice, Italy has a certain amount of times where you have to be a resident to stay in a certain area. And over time, it's only going to get worse because as the world population increases, more travelers increase. So yes, we have to, as travelers now, to take steps. We can't just be passive. We have to take a special steps to make sure that we're leaving minimal footprints in the places we go.
When you're traveling alone, it's, I suppose, tempting to be a little insular. But what did you learn from other people, from other cultures, that made you a better traveler, a better guest?
Well, I think it's that we're all the same in the sense. Everybody that I've met, despite difference of where we're from, we all have the same hopes and dreams. We want to have the same future. We want a great life. We want to have success. We want to meet other people. We want to do these things. And I met someone from China when I was in Scotland, and we were together for 3 or 4 hours, and we remained contacts. And we were completely different. He's an engineering student at the University of Manchester, but he has the same desires and wants to travel and wants and appreciated culture just as I do. And I think that's one of the best things about it as well, is that you're around people of your ilk. You're around people that have the same interests as you.
We talked a little bit earlier about the technology, but does the technology that's available now, and you actually list some apps and websites in your book, does it help a lot?
It does. However, some of these places you're not going to get phone connection. So you can't rely on it. And I mentioned in the book that anything that's important, you should screenshot. When you first get to a location, you're going to have your map app. And it'll work and it's going to be helpful, but screenshot that map right off the bat because you might run out. And temperature has affected my phone battery at times. In Iceland, my phone battery was going real quick. And when you're trying to connect to the internet, your phone drops. So technology helps, but you can't be exclusively rely on it. I mentioned things about having like a safety card that you print out and keep in your pocket as well, because who knows? The phone's great, but it's also maybe the first thing someone might steal from you.
Would that be your best advice for the solo traveler, or do you have a piece of advice that you think is key?
It wouldn't. My best advice would just be to do it. I say that because so many people, when I talk to them, I wish I could travel. I've always wanted to travel. Well, just do it. Just go.
Well, and when we talk about travel, maybe our minds take us to Europe. Maybe our minds take us to Hawaii. But it could take you across your state. It could take you to things in your own town.
Yeah, and it should start that way. I know that people who are married, for instance, my sister married and has two young daughters. She says, I can't, just go to Europe for a week. Of course. Go hiking in Sedona. Go to somewhere, close. Go to San Diego. Go to Prescott. Go to Flagstaff. Go to Bisbee in Arizona. Explore local first. Do those things by yourself. Get used to it. and then you'll have more confidence for the bigger trips.
And we just want to say, and I'll ask, it's also okay to go with other people.
Yeah, I didn't set out to this to be the introvert going around by themselves. It's just I was impatient and didn't want to wait. But hey, Lou, you want to come on the next trip? Let's do it. We talked about the trip, the tennis thing, so we'll go together.
Yeah, we'll head up to Palm Springs. Great tennis tournament up there that I've always wanted to go to. And like you say, you just have to make the decision. You have to make the call.
Yeah, just do it. Just get out there and just daydream. First of all, daydream, get ideas in your mind, and then go.
So Smart and Solo, it is available now. I believe it's available on Amazon. How have people reacted to the book?
Generally, people are loving the idea, and they what I like about it is that I've heard that not even solo travel, people who travel with families have found things that in there that they can use and like as well, and it's inspired other people. Just I got to travel, and it's great when I see people taking the book with them to other places. I've had just even yesterday people sending me pictures from different locations in the United States. And
there are tips about getting the right flight, about traveling.
Yeah,
within cities and places.
Local tourism is just as important. I know everything we talk about Paris and these great places, but the small ones and getting flights in between, all the information you're going to find in this book just going to help you. Going to help any traveler, anyone who's looking to travel, but specifically anyone who wants to do a solo.
All right, thank you so much. That's Randell Carlton Green. He's the author of Smart and Solo: The Blueprint for Efficient and Enjoyable Solo Travel. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me, Lou.
All right, this is Arizona Edition Live on KAWC.